Hello, and thank you for tuning in. You are tuned in to Esoteric Guidance, and my name is Nehru. We are going to go ahead and get started on our next book. Okay, our next canonical text. We just finished up. Why am I drawing a blank? Hello, McFly. We just finished up the 12 patriarchs, okay, covering the 12 sons of Jacob, 12 tribes, okay, that came, or the 12 tribes that came through their sons, okay, or his sons, and so they, meaning him and the 4 women that he was with. So, thank you so much as always for tuning in. And so we're going to delve into the book of Jubilees. Okay, and I'm going to read a little background about the book here in a moment. Thank you so much as always, subscribers, new listeners, and returning listeners. Thank you for tuning in. Okay, so the book of Jubilees is considered. Sometimes you might hear it called the little Genesis, right? Because it covers, but in greater detail, it's really not a reiteration of Genesis. Again, Genesis, just the word Genesis just references the first, okay? And so the first of everything, the first murder, the first, all of that is recorded in Genesis. It's not in chronological order. The biblical books between Genesis and Revelation are not in chronological order. Okay? So, So let's read a little bit about the background, who wrote the book of Jubilees, and its origin in that. Okay? So the book of Jubilees was written in Hebrew by a Pharisee between the year of the ascension of Hyrcanus to the high priesthood in 135 and his breach with the Pharisees some years before his death in 105. Okay, so somewhere in that 30-year period was when the book of Jubilees was written. It is the most advanced pre-Christian representative of the Midrashic tendency, okay, which has already been at work in the Old Testament chronicles, as the chronicler has rewritten the history of Israel and Judah from the basis of the priest code. Okay, so our author re-edited from the Pharisaic standpoint of his time, the history of events from the creation to the publication, or according to the author's view. Okay, and we see that with the Gospel of Matthew, Gospel of Luke, Gospel of John, right? We see different iterations of the same thing. Okay, and again, the book of Jubilees goes into a bit more detail. Okay, and so it covers, again, a lot of the events that we read about between Genesis and Exodus. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started on the first part, however far we end up going with it today. All right, so let's see here. This is the book of Jubilees. This is the prologue. How do they say that? Whatever, right? This is the history of the division of the days of the law and of the testimony, of the events of the years, of their years, weeks, and their jubilees throughout all the years of the world, as the Lord spake to Moses on Mount Sinai when he went up to receive the tablets of the law of the commandments, according to the voice of God, as he said unto him, go up to the mount, or go up to the top of the mount, actually, is what it says. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and see what it is that hides.
Okay.
Alexa, cancel. I'm not sure she decided that I said something that, because I said 2 words, but it sounded like I was saying the name of the computer. All right. So let's go ahead and take a look here. God's revelation to Moses on Mount Sinai. And it came to pass in the first year of the exodus of the children of Israel out of Egypt, and this is good because we just finished up, again, the 12 patriarchs, where a lot of them were leaving information with their children as to how to conduct themselves, even though they had doubts as to whether or not their children or generations following would be strong enough and faithful enough, and sure enough they weren't. But many of the 12 sons from those patriarchs, they mention until the children come out of Egypt, or until we are brought out of Egypt, or until we are led out of Egypt, but many of them reference that. So it's good that we are now stepping into them being led out. Okay? And it came to pass in that year of the exodus of the children of Israel out of Egypt, in the 3rd month, on the 17th day of the month, that God spake to Moses, saying, Come up to me on the mount, and I will give thee 2 tablets of stone of the law and of the commandment which I have written, that thou mayest teach them. And Moses went up into the mount of God, and the glory of God, the Lord, abode on Mount Sinai, and a cloud overshadowed it in 6 days. Overshadowed it 6 days. On the 7th day, God rested. Right? And he called to Moses on the 7th day out of the midst of the cloud, and the appearance of the glory of the Lord was like a flaming fire on the top of the mount. And Moses was on the mount 40 days and 40 nights. I think that is so interesting. So Yeshua in the desert 40 days and 40 nights. Moses is 40 days and 40 nights. 40 days and 40 nights. And God taught him the earlier and the latter history of the division of all the days of the law and of the testimony. And he said, Incline thine ear to every word which I shall speak to thee on this mount, and write them in a book in order, that their generations may see how I have not forsaken them for all the evil which they have wrought in transgressing the covenant which I established between me and thee for generations this day on Mount Sinai. And thus it came, and thus, I'm sorry, these words are even smaller. At least the writing of it is even smaller than the 12 patriarchs, okay? And it came to pass, that's why I'm not holding the phone, because I have to zoom in, so I have to kind of span back and forth on the screen. And thus it will come to pass, when all these things come upon them, that they will recognize that I am more righteous than they in all their judgments and in all their actions. And they will recognize that I have been truly with them. And do thou write for thyself all these words which I declare unto thee this day, for I know their rebellion and their stiff neck, before I bring them into the land of which I swear to their fathers, to Abraham and to Isaac and to Jacob, saying, Unto your seed will I give you a land flowing with milk and honey. And there are many of us right now on a current timeline that's about to walk into a land flowing with milk and honey. And they will eat and be satisfied, and they will turn to strange gods, to gods which cannot deliver them from aught of their tribulation. And this witness shall be heard for a witness against them, for they will forget all my commandments, even all that I command them, and they will walk after the Gentiles, and after their uncleanness, and after their shame, and will serve their gods, and will prove unto them an offense, and a tribulation, and an affliction, and a snare. Confirmation burp, excuse me. And a yawn. I was up at 2:34 this morning, 2:34. And many will perish, and they will be taken captive, and will fall into the hands of the enemy, because they have forsaken my ordinances and my commandments, and the festivals of my covenant, and my Sabbaths, and it says Sabbaths, and my holy place, which I have hallowed for myself. That means made holy. In their midst, my right ear is ringing. My tabernacle, my sanctuary, which I have hallowed for myself in the midst of the land, that I should set my name upon it, and that it should dwell there. And they will make to themselves high places and groves and graven images. And they will worship each his own graven image, so as to go astray, and they will sacrifice their children to demise, or demons, same thing, and to all the works of the error of their hearts. And I will send witnesses unto them, that I may witness against them, but they will not hear. And will slay the witnesses also, and they will persecute those who seek the law. And they've tried to persecute us, prosecute us. And they will abrogate and change everything, so as to work evil before my eyes. Verse 13. And I shall hide my face from them, and I shall deliver them into the hand of the Gentiles for captivity, and for a prey, and for devouring. And I shall remove from them in the midst of the land, and shall scatter them amongst the Gentiles. And they will forget all my law, and all my commandments, and all my judgments, and will go astray as to new moons, and Sabbaths, and festivals, and Jubilees, and ordinances. And after this, they will turn to me from amongst the Gentiles with all their heart, and with all their soul, and with all their strength. And I shall gather from them amongst all the Gentiles, and they will seek me, so that I shall be found of them when they seek me. 13 minutes ago. Seek me with all their heart and with all their soul, and I shall disclose to them abounding peace with righteousness, and shall remove them the plant of uprightness with all my heart and with all my soul, and they will be for a blessing and not for a curse. And they will be the head and not the tail. And I shall build my sanctuary in the midst, and I shall dwell with them, and I shall be their God, and they shall be my people. I love that statement. In truth and righteousness. And I shall not forsake them nor fail them, for I am the Lord their God. And Moses fell on his face and prayed and said, O Lord my God, do not forsake thy people, thy inheritance, so that they should wander in error of their hearts, and do not deliver them into the hands of their enemies, the Gentiles, lest they should rule over them and cause them to sin against thee. Let thy mercy, O Lord, be lifted up upon thy people, and create in them an upright spirit. And I'm reminded of like King James Version that says something about creating them a pure heart. And let not the spirit of Beliar, we know about Beliar from the 12 patriarchs. Spirit of Beliar, that's Lilith, right? Any Jezebel, same spirit. Rule over them to accuse them before thee and ensnare them from the paths of righteousness, so that they may perish from before thy face. But they are thy people and thy inheritance, and thou hast delivered with thy great power from the hands of the Egyptians. Delivered the hands of the Egyptians. Create in them a clean heart and a holy spirit, and let them not be ensnared in their sins from henceforth until eternity. And the Lord said unto Moses, I know their contrariness and their thoughts and their stiff-neckedness, and they will not be obedient till they confess their own sin and sin of their fathers. And after this they will turn to me in all righteousness, and will with all their heart and with all their soul, and I shall circumcise the foreskin of their heart and the foreskin of their heart of the seed. And I shall create in them a Holy Spirit, and I shall cleanse. That Holy Spirit is Christos flowing up and down your vertebrae. Okay? Real life fluid, physical, literal fluid, people. You have 33 of those vertebrae. No coincidence. That's the Christos. That's the Christ. And I shall cleanse them, so that they shall not turn away from me from that day unto eternity. And their soul will cleave to me and to all my commandments, and they shall fulfill my commandments, and I shall be their father, and they shall be my children. And they will all be called children of the living God. And every angel and every spirit will know, yea, they will know that these are my children, and that I am their father in uprightness and righteousness, and that I love them. And do thou write down for thyself all these words which I declare unto thee on this mountain, the first and the last, which shall come to pass in all the divisions of the days, in the laws and in the testimony, and in the weeks, and in the jubilees unto eternity, until I descend and dwell with them throughout eternity. Okay? And all right. And I actually think we will stop there for reasons of me having to do other things. Okay, so we will stop there for now. This will probably be the shortest one of all of these, at least for videos. Okay, so again, we have just started the book of Jubilees. Okay, and again, this is another one of the canonical texts. Okay, that were selected to not be included between Genesis to Revelation. Okay. As always, thank you so much for tuning in. This is Esoteric Guidance. My name is Nehru. And again, we'll be back perhaps even today with more from the book of Jubilee as we make our way through it, learn more about how Divine White Light spoke to Moses, gave to Moses, again, beyond Genesis to Revelation, beyond Genesis and Exodus. Okay? Thank you so much as always, and continue to be encouraged.